Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, I will start solving a past paper. This is the May-June 2022 paper, variant 2 for your AS levels, 11th grade, CIE Psychology 9990. You can visit my site alevels.excellingpsychology.com. I'll link it in the description box below. If you want notes for your course studies and some model answers to go through, they are available on my site. I will solve this past paper completely, but I will not be able to finish it in one video. So I will put up parts of this lesson. So do look out for upcoming parts. As and when I make the parts, I will keep on linking them to the description box below. I will solve this paper by orienting you towards how you should think about every answer. So before I write down an answer, I will suggest to you how you should think about it. But of course, I will not be able to elaborate too much on every answer that we are going to write. So if you want more detailed lessons, there are some on my YouTube channel. So you can visit the playlist that I have linked in the description box below. And of course, again, you can visit my website for more detailed lessons. Okay, so let's begin. We'll start off with section A, of course, and all questions need to be answered in this section. You cannot skip or pick and choose from these questions. Okay, the first question asked to us is, state what is meant by reliability. This is a very straightforward question whenever they tell you to state something. So when the command term is state and the answer is just for 1 mark, it is very clear that you just have to give a simple definition of whatever has been asked. So this is a descriptive question, that too a very simple one. So whatever you have learnt about reliability, whatever definition you remember of it, you have to present simply that for this answer. Okay, I'm sure you've learned something about reliability in terms of having the same procedure or the standardized procedure for every participant, or simply as consistency of a procedure followed or consistency of results. So those are the terms in which you might have learnt about it. So whatever you have learned, you can present here. I'm presenting a simple definition of reliability here. So I would say that reliability is the consistency of the procedure followed in a research study. And I'll underline the main term which is explaining reliability so that the examiner has ease in reading through my answer quickly. Of course, examiners have to go through a lot of answers, so we can be a little empathic towards them. Okay, the next question is, explain the difference between qualitative data and quantitative data. You're asked to explain here. Okay, so you have to go beyond just stating. You can see the space given is also more for writing the answer, which suggests to you that you are expected to elaborate a little. Okay, so little elaboration is required here. In a state type of command term, you could just mention something, but in explain command term, you have to actually give some reasoning. Okay, also you can see that it is for 2 marks. It's a 2-mark question, and 2 terms have been outlined in the question, both of which you have to explain. Make sure you dedicate equal coverage to both of these. So write clearly about qualitative data as well as quantitative. Some students have this tendency of focusing too much on one, and then they either run out of space or time falls short, and so they don't cover the other one equally. If 2 terms are mentioned and 2 marks are allotted, you can take it as the marks are equally distributed between both the terms. Okay, before we write the answer, What do you remember about qualitative data? Again, depending on how you've learned it, qualitative data refers to data which is non-numerical, right? It's generally verbal. So the kind of data we get through our interviews, surveys, if there are open questions on those, or observations, the transcripts that we do of what we've observed, from those sources we get qualitative data because it is verbal or it is in words. Okay, what about quantitative data? It is numerical. So when we have measured something in terms of numbers, the data we have collected for our study is in terms of numbers, we call that type of data qualitative. Now what they have asked us is the difference between the two. Okay, and we have to explain what this difference is. Okay, clearly the difference is that qualitative is non-numerical and it's not at all in numbers, whereas quantitative is the opposite. It is in numbers and it's not at all verbal. Okay, so keeping all of this in mind, let us write one answer. I'll give you this. These all are sample or model answers. Of course, you could write in your own words. Okay. So I'll begin with qualitative. Again, one more thing. Good practice is that whatever has been mentioned first, discuss that first. So qualitative data is mentioned first. Try to maintain that order. Quantitative is mentioned second. So put that later as far as possible. Okay, so I would begin with qualitative data. Is the type of information collected in research which is in words. It is not numerical. I could say it is not in numbers. In contrast, so this is how I'm explaining. I'm drawing a comparison. I'm showing my reasoning, how I'm comparing quantitative with qualitative and presenting it. So this is how we explain something. In contrast, quantitative data is information collected in numbers it is not collected in words. Okay, my handwriting is a little big, which I have kept so that you can see clearly. Your handwriting may be smaller. You don't have to fill in the whole space. There are no fixed number of sentences you have to write as long as your answer is correct. It is addressing what is asked in the question. Don't bother about how much space it's taking or how many total words you have. Okay, now the past two questions were really simple to answer. We look at now a more typical paper 2 type of question, which requires our knowledge of research methods to be used. Okay, so when we read these type of questions, we should not just read them on face value. We should keep translating them in our minds as we read. I'll show you what I mean by this. Schachter and Singer, 2 factors in emotion study, was a laboratory experiment. The participants in the study were all male. A new experiment could explore gender differences in the effect of epinephrine. However, the stooge may influence emotions differently in males and females. When I'm reading this, what comes to my mind immediately is confounding or influence of extraneous variables, uncontrolled variables. Okay, so if you've done your extraneous variables lesson well, you will immediately be able to catch this. Influence of extraneous variables. The extraneous variable named here is gender. They want us to consider how gender could confound the results. Okay, let's read further. Suggest how a difference between the influence of the stooge on males and females could affect the results about gender differences in the effect of epinephrine. Simply how gender could act as a confound. That is what you have to suggest. This command term, which is this suggest, clearly it indicates that you're not being asked a simple type of definition. Like we saw in the past 2 questions, you're being asked to go beyond that. You're being asked to apply your personal reasoning. There are multiple answers possible to this question depending on how you reason out. Here I'll give you the simplest and the most likely answer that will come to your mind. You have studied 𝗣𝗬𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟 study this year. That's part of your syllabus. So here you can see how cleverly the person who has said this question, the teacher, has really is really making you think in terms of, how you can correlate what you learn in one study with what you've learned in another study. She's helping you to connect your knowledge here. Okay, in 𝗣𝗬𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟 study, you have learned that females are socialized to be less aggressive. And that's what 𝗣𝗬𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟 found in his study, that the female the girls were less aggressive overall than boys. They were more aggressive, right? So whenever we consider gender as a confound with anything that has to do with emotions, especially the emotion of anger, we have to know that males and females respond differently. This is what we've learned in 𝗣𝗬𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟's study. So females tend to be less aggressive, and in Schachter and Singer's study, we know that one of the emotions which was played out by the stooge was that of aggression, of anger. So what we can expect is that gender would influence results in this way. That is, females would be less aggressive than males. Because of that, what would happen is epinephrine would not have that much of an effect on females as much as it would have on males. So that is how we have to think. Okay, now how to answer the question. We've got our line of thinking now. We've understood what they're asking us and we have an answer ready. Always pick up the wording of the answer from the question itself. Now when they're asking, suggest how a difference between influence of stooge in males and females. So first explain what difference you are suggesting. Okay, here we are suggesting the difference in aggression. So first we will specify that could affect the results. So first we'll point out the difference. Next we'll show how it affects the results. Answer writing is not difficult. Just follow the lead that the question is giving you. Okay, so how I'll answer this is, since females are socialized to be less aggressive than males. Okay, what have I done till here? I've spoken about the difference part which they have asked me. Whatever I'm writing in purple is just for understanding. What I'm writing in blue is the final answer. Okay, so first I've pointed out the difference. Females are socialized to be less aggressive than males. I'll complete this. They can be expected to experience less anger under the influence of the stooge. Now next what we have to suggest is how this would influence results. So my next sentence will be about affecting the results. So what would happen because of this? It would appear that females are less influenced by epinephrine. That is, it would appear as if epinephrine is ineffective when it comes to arousing the emotions of females. Whereas it's not epinephrine which is ineffective, it is females' natural tendency towards less aggression or socialized tendency towards less aggression that is impacting them. So what I will write is, this would cause females to appear less influenced by the injection of epinephrine thereby confounding results. Okay, or you could write making results less valid. So in this next sentence, I have pointed out to the results. So what exactly would happen to the results? Female would appear less influenced by epinephrine. Okay, when you write like this, when you follow the lead of the question in writing the answer, not only do you pick on the correct format for writing your answer, you also make sure you answer completely. Otherwise, students just tend to answer one part of the question and not the other. So that shouldn't be the case. Again, whatever are your main points, you could underline them for making the answer more prominent to the examiner. So what we've written is females are socialized to be less aggressive. We could just underline that part. And because of this, what will happen? Females will appear less influenced. That is the impact on the results. So whatever keywords are there, I'm just underlining those. Okay, let's move on to the next question now. It's on the next page. Okay, they're continuing with the 𝗧𝗪𝗟𝗍 study. Let's see what else they're asking us. A second new experiment could include a stooge who claims to feel ill because of the injection. Okay, so they would want to include a new stooge, and he suggests that he's feeling ill rather than expressing any emotion. Suggest how one participant variable could affect the results of this second new experiment. Participant variable. What's a participant variable? Something that is within participants. What we call individual differences. So an extraneous variable or a confounding variable that is coming from within participants. Gender was also a participant variable. Okay, now let's consider the scenario they've given us again. See, if a stooge pretends to be ill, we'll have to connect this with what we already know about 𝗧𝗪𝗟𝗍𝗪's study. Why they made the stooge act angry or happy in their original study? Because they thought participants would start experiencing the same emotion. Now, if a researcher is replicating that study and making the stooge pretend as if he's ill, what is he expecting? He's expecting that participants will also start to feel ill when they look at the stooge. Okay, so first be clear on what the experiment is trying to do over here. Always for any question, understand the purpose of conducting the study first. So here the experimenter's desire is to make participants feel ill. Okay, that's why he is asking the stooge to enact illness. Now, visualize this scene in your mind. The participant is, the stooge is pretending to be ill and the participant is watching the stooge. If he reports that now he is also feeling ill because the stooge is behaving that way, what could be another reason? Instead of it being the stooge that has impacted the participant, what could be some factor? This is what you need to ask yourself. Some factor within the participant that is causing him to feel ill. When do people feel ill? When they are ill, no? Before they've come for the experiment only they are feeling ill. Okay. So, some participants as it is might not be feeling well or because of the epinephrine injection. Besides their emotions, their physical wellness might have been affected by, like, some people, if they're sensitive to injections or they've got worried because of being, given an injection that's caused them to become anxious. So they might already be feeling that way. So again, this is a question of confounding. Rather than the stooge making them ill, it might be their own physical state which is causing them to be ill. So we have to write the answer in a similar way that we wrote the previous one. So one participant variable That's the first thing we need to write down in the answer. We'll mention which is the participant variable, outline it very clearly. Secondly, we will mention how it could affect the result. So make sure we cover everything that's asked. Okay, let's begin with one participant variable. Could be how ill or well a participant is naturally feeling at the time of the experiment. Okay, so that answers the first part. Second, I'll answer how this could affect the results. So again, it's about confounding. This could affect results as it would appear that participants are being influenced by the behavior of the stooge whereas in reality their own state is making them feel ill. This would confound results, or you could say make them less valid. Okay, now very quickly let's come to the next question. It's a simpler one. Explain one ethical problem with this second new experiment. Clearly it has to do with illness, and if you've done your ethics well, you know anything with regard to illness always contradicts the ethical guideline of protection from harm. So answer has to be in those lines. Only suggestion I can give whenever it comes to ethical problems is make sure you name the ethical guideline. Most students don't name the ethical guideline. When I tell them to write the answers for the first time, that time they clearly don't mention it and I have to correct them there. What they do is they explain harm and all in their own words, they explain, but they just don't label out this guideline, which they should. Okay, here definitely if we are causing participants to feel ill, which type of harm are we making them undergo? Is it physical or psychological? It's the physical one, because here the stooge is pretending to feel ill at a physical level. Okay, so we can say that the participants are not being protected from physical harm. So that's the guideline being violated. This is a simple one. Okay, and of course we have to make the results relevant to the scenario given. Okay, because it's an explain answer. They have not asked us to just name the ethical problem, otherwise we would have just written protection from harm, or they have not asked us to just state the guideline which has been broken. It is an explain command term, so we'll answer accordingly, and it's for 2 marks. Okay, so let's write this. What we should do is this is my way of writing. Again, it's a model answer. You could write it differently, but the order I would suggest is: one ethical problem is violation of, or you could say breaking of, the guideline of protection from harm. Okay, so in my opinion, you should state it right away. Get your 1 mark right here when you have clearly named the guideline which is broken. Next, link it. So in the next sentence, I link it. First is naming. Next is linking. So how I link this? This is because I'm explaining. So this is because participants are being deliberately made to feel ill in this new experiment. Okay, so that completes. It's been really simple. It's got what we've answered in this 3A and B has got all to do with confounding and protection from harm. Next question is from the Baron-Cohen-Ice test, but I'll stop this part here. It's becoming lengthy. I'll come back with this part soon, and whenever I do, I'll link it in the description box. So in the next part, we are going to be continuing with question 4 of this same paper. Thank you for watching.